DG, I'm back again. You know nothing can stop me from making vids. No inconsistent random zooms from a camera. Damn well no weather, damn well the environment. I'm obviously at work, out and about. The weather is crap, but I'm not gonna have another opportunity to make this video. So I thought the stuff I put together in my lunch break, why don't I sit down and speak with you guys? Now I've managed to find this seat and it's rather comfortable. My hand is dying though, and I should really invest in, I don't know, a portable stand or something. But let's start off with Ornstein, people. Now, David Ornstein has been speaking via the Athletics podcast, and he has said some interesting things about Emery. Now, many people previously knew that, and he still is, David Ornstein was one of the people in the know and kind of got information quickly. Since there's been a change of management or whatever, I wouldn't necessarily say he's the first source, not that there's any prize for being first, but he still somewhat has to be reliable. He's a journalist, he's got contacts in the game. But what he said and what I've taken out of his sound bites is, it looks now of a matter of when and not if Emery's leaving. The situation is very, very delicate, and the feeling is things are happening. Apologies for moving the camera, people. He's gone on to say, and again I've paraphrased, things on the pitch and to a certain extent off the pitch are spiraling out of control, and it could get to a point where they feel they have to make a change. So that, what does that tell you, people? That the interesting one was off the field. So there was clearly legs to the whole Xhaka 1 minute captain, then he's upset with Emery, the Lacazette bust ups, the player in-house bust up. These sort of things have to be true. The players being disillusioned with his tactics and things like that, and his analytical approach and things like that, people. Apologies if the rain is getting on the camera, but that shows you there's legs to them arguments. Of course, the media and outlets might be telling the truth, but they might be exaggerating, and obviously they add their own fire to the story to obviously get clicks and newspapers sold and things. So we'll never know unless they specifically come out what happens. But that's the first thing that came for me. And it also seems like you are hearing reports that Arsenal are willing to sit on their hands and they back Sanye. I mean, Sanye backs Emery. But on the other hand, you are hearing that we're looking at targets where we're talking with managers and things like that. So I do think things are happening, clearly not happening enough. And I wouldn't say we can necessarily get it right, because if we do get a new manager, I'm not defending Emery, people. I want Emery to leave because he's not the man, but it doesn't mean a next manager comes in and they're successful, maybe even the next manager after that. What we need to do is do our research so that there's less of this Emery thing where you can evidently see how Emery wants to set up his team and how he goes about things is the furthest thing from what Arsenal aspire to be or what Arsenal's been about. So if it means we have to have like a stopgap, whether Lumber is given the opportunity to the end of the season, and if he proves himself, well done, so that you have time to go out there and interview. We can sit here and say the Allegri's, the Poch who's not coming, and these typical names have been thrown into the Arsenal ring. But I would actually prefer an unknown, people. Of course, don't mistake me saying unknown with experience. You can be an experienced unknown in that you're not necessarily a household name as a manager, and I think that might be a benefit. Of course, when you say Allegri and Poch and all of these guys within reason, we kind of know what they're about. So I wouldn't say there's more confidence, but there's more we can see or kind of speculate in regards to what they would do at a club, versus if there was a random manager in Japan like a certain Arsene Wenger once upon a time, obviously had experience, it might be different. But for me, I don't care if they're an unknown or a household name. First thing they need to do is be able to coach a philosophy, coach a team, and galvanise a side. And I think that's what we need to do, and that's why I don't advocate changing for the sake of change. When I say that, clearly Emery needs to go, but what I mean is you don't just have a scattergun approach and just bring in anyone, because whether we was to panic or have a long due diligent research sort of conducted led thing to get our new target or a new manager, it might not be a success, people. But that's what I would like to see, is that at least if it's not a success, we've really scrutinised each manager and really done our research, people. It's also gone to say, well, I've already basically said this, it's fair to assume as an opinion, and it's been reported as a fact elsewhere, that Arsenal are looking at candidates to replace him. If they are to get rid of him, and that's the sensible things to do in this situation, is what he said. The sensible thing to do is that. Now, of course, they're looking at it, and it made me thinking I should do this in a separate vid, people. If you as Emery, would you believe that you could still do this job? Now, I like to put myself in other people's shoes. Clearly, I don't believe, as DG, I don't believe Emery is the man long term for this role. But if you was to put yourself in his shoes, would you believe you're the man? Because we don't exactly know everything, both things that we criticise him and things that we might criticise him, but it might not necessarily be his fault, people. Like, he might be trying to coach defensively, but for one other reason, something ain't happening, innit? Would you guys still believe you're the man? Because on one hand, if you look at reports, regardless of this form, you're retaining the faith from the boardroom, well, specifically Sanye. So that would lead you to believe someone believes in your abilities. Equally, if same reports are to be believed and we're looking at other targets, then if you're a manager going in day to day with all of this noise and the inconsistent forms, and you hear they're looking for people, it would be upsetting and it would make you feel less confident, whether he deserves that or not. Because obviously Emery, I believe he's in this spot because of him and him alone. Obviously the players have to take blame, but his tactics, everything is his, people. Do you get it? But imagine you, whatever job you do now, for whatever reason, whether you're doing it well or not, you hear your manager, or you hear rumours that your manager's looking for another person. That's going to have an effect on you. So I tried to, would you believe if you lot were Emery, you could still do the job? Because I believe I could. Now, and that's where people need to be saved from their madness. But if I was Emery, I'd still believe I could. Because what have you got to lose, people? You're still there. The club, you're hearing everything from 4 to 6 to 15 million in total, or in terms of how much it will cost to sack Unai Emery, when you consider 15, obviously, considering his coaching staff and things like that, people. But surely you'd believe in yourself. And I want Emery to go, but I'm always cautious of when people are backed into a corner, how do they react or how do they feel? Because I want Emery to go, but I'm saying that, you're saying that, my subscribers and your subscribers, whoever's watching this and people you speak to are saying that, the media's saying it, the players clearly lost faith in him or are losing faith, the media and all different, whether it's pundits, presenters, everything is saying it. So the world is against you. So you either, when you're backed in a corner like this, you either come out fighting and swinging or you curl into a ball. Emery, I do believe Emery is a decent manager. He is clearly an established manager and he's got a good CV. He's just not the manager for Arsenal. He's shown that. He doesn't have a blueprint. This guy making random, you're a grown man to be making random noises, man. What's going on? But either way, like I was trying to say before he threw me off foot, people, everything you relate is Emery's issues. Everything is Emery's problem. He's just not the manager for Arsenal. He doesn't have a clear way of doing things. Far too reactive, and we needed someone who was proactive. He is very reactive to the opposition. He's proactive in his defeative mindset, in that he's pragmatic and he sets the team up in a defeative manner, but he's reactive. He reacts to substitutions, he reacts to the opposition, he reacts to his own mistakes and makes changes at half-time, people. As you know, game management has not improved. Defenders' inability to focus for large sustained periods aren't there. We can say he's negative and he's pragmatic, but if you can't see out 1-goal leads and you can't take results and we find ourselves losing points from winning positions as we do, are you really a defensively minded manager, people? So I don't know, man. If I was Emery, I'd still believe I could do the role, and I just wanted to ask you guys that, man, because I'm sure you lot will throw up some interesting ones. Obviously, Xhaka now, people. Now, Xhaka, apparently, I forgot completely about him in my preview for the Frankfurt game. Apparently this is the game for Xhaka to be reinstated back into the starting lineup or to resume his Arsenal playing career. Now we know it's not going to be exactly smooth. There will be occasional boos and whatnot, but as things go on, people will still hold the same feelings, but Xhaka will become less of a talking point, or at least what I hope, because what I don't want it to be is Xhaka, Emery's future, Xhaka's future, whatever game we're playing, they become like the major talking points, regardless, innit, people. We clearly know there's going to be a solution, as Xhaka put himself in January, whether that's leaving permanently or whether the club and Arsenal and the fans and Xhaka himself can mend relations and these sort of things is another story, people. But we'll see in relation to Xhaka, man. If it was up to me, Xhaka wouldn't play again, but it is what it is. I'm not going to boo him at the Emirates. I'm not going to carry on like that. I don't feel fans were completely wrong. I don't feel they were completely right. Xhaka wasn't wrong to react, but he wasn't right to react. There's a human element. For me, Xhaka would never play for this football club again, but if he does play, then like I said, the bad blood is still there, but he's still an Arsenal player, and away from that, I don't want to focus on Xhaka. I just want to focus on the collective, which is Arsenal Football Club. I've made my feelings clear. You lot have made your feelings clear. But that doesn't, just because I'm saying that doesn't mean I'm right or wrong, people. That's just me as a man. I can only be accountable with myself. If you want to boo Xhaka, while I wouldn't agree with it, if fans want to boo him and do this and jeer him every time he warms up and trains and his numbers are nuts, then they can do that, innit? I think it's unhealthy for them, not because they want to criticise Xhaka, but I think it is. But I can't tell an ex-man anything. It's like when people want Arsenal to lose because they want Emery to go. My personal opinion is, I see the logic, but I think that's a waste man thing. I'm not on that. But I can't tell the next man that's right or wrong. I think it's wrong, but if that's what he believes, that's what he believes, innit? I don't believe in telling the next man this, that and the third, people. Finally, we've been linked with Wolves manager Nuno. I like him, people. I like him. I think he's a better defensive manager than Unai Emery, and I don't think his statistics this season in the league back that up. I only think Wolves have 3 clean sheets, which is probably more than us in the league. And I will be fair, as much as I like him, I would have thought Wolves would be doing Lords. I would have thought Wolves would be doing people what Leicester is doing this season, and I'm sure many people thought that. Give or take, people would have thought Watford, Leicester, maybe even less so Leicester because they just got Rodgers, but Leicester, Wolves, Watford to a degree, these were the teams people were expecting to push on at a point, and it's only looking like Leicester doing their thing. But what I like about Nuno is, again, whether I agree with 3 at the back or 5 at the back like he goes with at times, he's clearly got a philosophy. He clearly teaches his team and his defenders, okay, you lot need to, when the ball's there, you need to be here, fullbacks, you need to tuck in. So there's a clear way of working. He's given confidence to players like Doherty and all of these sort of men. He's shown he can use young players, which I think, again, I don't know Wolves' young players and their dynamics, but that's one thing we'd probably would be a question mark over him. But true say he's given people debuts, and there's Morgan Gibbs-White. I like him because he uses young players, maybe not the most, but he's shown a willingness to. He's found new uses for players. Like obviously Adama Traore hasn't hit off in the Prem, but at least until a couple of weeks ago, everybody was singing his praises in that wing-back position, people. Obviously experienced players like João Moutinho, who obviously is a bad boy footballer, but some people might say he's too old to make an impact in the Premier League, or at the time, because that was something I saw online. He's shown he'll give faith to them. For me, Nuno, he's someone that can unite the fans and the players. And I mean, to be fair, Emery did that. People got behind Emery because Wenger's gone and we gave the new manager time. So I wouldn't necessarily say that's a plus point, but I think that's one thing I like about Nuno. He's made a case of at Valencia and Wolves, really making the fans feel part of the thing, really praising the fans. And obviously that doesn't mean you're going to win leagues or get Champions League at Arsenal or anything, but that's a big thing. He really understands that aspect. And obviously I think his passionate stuff glows off on the fans, and the fans want to give their all for Nuno and the team, and likewise the players. I like him. I like what he's done. I mean, again, I wasn't following him religiously, people, but I look at his time at Porto. He didn't win a trophy, forgive me if I'm wrong, and he finished second. It weren't the best. But you look at, again, in his homeland, is it Rio Ave? I can never say their name, but he got them a Europa League finish and got them to a couple of cup finals. They didn't win the cups, but he got them Europa League, and at the time that was the first time in their history, people. So that's shown he can work with things, people. At Valencia, it wasn't the best of times. There was a lot of politics allegedly with Peter Lim becoming the president or the owner. Obviously Mendes, who's still kind of rocking with him, ironically. There was talk and criticism of whether the players were actually wanted by the manager or coaching staff, and there was a lot of politics. But there was a point when in Spain, when Emery's Seville were like second bottom or bottom, I'm so sure this guy was on a 21 unbeaten game at the period in the season, whatever it was, and the only recent defeat they had at that time, they went 21 games without losing, and I think their last defeat at the time was in April, and that was against Barcelona. So that's not a bad record to have. They went unbeaten, but the playing style and the way they play wasn't exactly perfect. There was a lot wrong, but I wouldn't mind Nuno, man. I don't really have a clear favourite, people. I mean, I'm at the point where it would be in an ideal world, just to highlight the name, Pochettino's never come in, but you'd be able to interview Pochettino, you'd interview Arteta, you would interview Allegri, you'd interview a range of managers, whether it's the unknown managers, like I said at the start, established managers, and more like when you think of Champions League, you think of Allegri and that, if they were to come. Obviously there's young and unproven managers like Arteta. I would give Arteta a chance, or at least hear him out for his philosophies. But like I said in the previous vid, by that same logic, just because we hear this praise about Pep Guardiola that he's done with Pep and he's long-term seen as the replacement, and you hear how he does a lot of the coaching and the finer details, just because some people, like people harshly put it, just because you lay out cones for Pep or help him with the setups doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be Pep Guardiola or do great things in management. I think Arteta will be a success. I think that's the way, just in football, away from Arsenal, I think that's the way football is going, people. But there are two ways to everything. You've obviously got Vieira, who obviously he's a legend, and I hear that he's a legend, but being a legend doesn't mean you're going to be a good manager, people. It doesn't. What Vieira has over Arteta is experience, but I'm not going to lie, I'm not convinced really with Vieira at this moment in time. I wouldn't say I'm convinced with Arteta because I haven't seen what he could do, but what my point would be is, even Vieira, I'd listen to what he has to say, but it wouldn't be it for me. I would just like us to really scrutinise these managers and really make the right choice, whether you go for the Nunos, whether you can tempt Brendan Rodgers, but I wouldn't leave if I was Rodgers. Pochettino is not going to come here, but try. Allegri, I wouldn't come here, but try. Or what I would like to do is go Marco Rose of Gladbach, or go for someone that isn't necessarily known by football fans, someone that's no one's really preying like that. As long as he's the man, should be the man. Yeah, man, I mean, yeah, so I would, the typical names you see linked, I would just, again, with the Patricks, like I've said, Arteta's, Allegri's and all of these names, I'm not pitting them against each other. What I just hope the club is doing is that they're genuinely picking these guys or whoever comes because they want him. They're not just picking a safe pair of hands, because again, Arteta, just to make a point, not to harp on about him, he could have very much got the job instead of Emery, and we could be sitting here saying he's out of his depth and all of these things, which could happen, and people could say, why didn't you bring in Emery? But by the same logic, did you kind of bottle the appointment of Arteta and go for a safe pair of hands in Unai Emery? And because of that, is that why we're here at this moment? I don't know, people. But on that note, the rain is getting a bit too mad, so I'm going to keep it moving. Thank you for watching and rocking as you usually do. People, deluded. I'm out. Yo.